So if you look in the Chumash itself, for the reason why the three Chagim are festivals, there are three festivals: Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. Rosh Hashanah is not a Chag, and Yom Kippur is not a Chag. It's a holy day, but they're not per se celebratory days. The three Chagim, which are the three Yomim Tovim, that a Jew was obligated to make a pilgrimage to Yerushalayim, to the Beis Hamikdash, to be seen by God and to see God, to bring festive offerings. So these three holidays are Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. In fact, they're called Regolim. Regel means a foot. They're called the Shloisha Regolim, the three pilgrimage or foot holidays. So what's the reason for the celebration? So looking in Chumash itself, and this is spelled out in the Medrash, it all revolves around agriculture. Initially, of course, the Jewish people in Israel were an agricultural society. Hence, the three holidays are as follows. The first one, Pesach. Well, Pesach is a bit of an exception because the Torah itself says in great detail, described in the Exodus. But it also coincides with the beginning of the season where we're planting. Spring. We're planting our produce. Shavuos, 7 weeks later, is already the beginning of the harvest. The Torah calls it that.
Rabbi,
yeah?
could you please explain what harvest is? I know you plant seeds, which would be Pesach, and ingathering when you cut the wheat. What is the definition of harvest?
I'm missing the main word you said, purpose?
Harvest. Could you please define the word harvest?
Harvest is Pesach. Pesach
Well,
is
what does harvest mean? What does harvest mean?
to cut the grain in the field.
But isn't that ingathering for Sukkot?
Isn't it what?
Ingathering when you cut the grain?
Ingathering is Sukkot. That's where you take it, you bring it into the store, the silos and the storehouses. So Sukkot is the Chag HaOsif. That means ingathering. But Pesach is Chag HaKotzir. That's the harvest. In fact, they tied the bundles of sheaves and left it in the field till they gathered. Presumably to dry over the summer. And then at the end of the summer, at Sukkot, they start to gather it in. Right? So
okay, perfect.
Yeah, two separate stages. All right, so we've covered all three stages. There's the planting, it's Pesach. The harvest, the beginning of the harvest is Sukkot. Shavuos. And the ingathering is on Sukkot. In fact, not only is the grain gathered in, but even the fruits. The fruits only ripen and are picked, and then taken in. The fruits are not left on the field. The fruits are picked and taken in right away, not left in the orchard. So that is all on Sukkot. In fact, in the secular kibbutzim in Israel, Shavuos, they celebrate Shavuos. Nothing to do with the giving of the Torah. There's nothing godly or religious about it. But they do have I've seen it, a whole ceremony related to the harvest.
Isn't it specific
the sheaves.
to wheat?
Huh?
Isn't Shavuos more specific to
I'm
wheat?
sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. So they have a whole ceremony. but it's completely devoid of anything spiritual. That's changing. It's changing. Baruch Hashem. But at any rate, so hence, having pointed out what we did, this explains the following. When it comes to simcha, when it comes to joy, there's no commandment on Pesach to be joyous. None. Shavuos, the Torah says once, you shall be joyous. But Sukkot, in 3 different places, the Torah says you shall be joyous. So we understand, therefore, the reason on a very basic level. Because when you're planting, there's no celebration yet. We're praying for a bountiful yield, but it's all it's just potential. We hope it'll happen. So therefore, there's no commandment to be joyous. Simcha, by definition, you celebrate, you're joyous when something is revealed and manifest and experienced. And on Pesach, it's the planting. Hence, there's no commandment to be joyous. On Shavuos already, there's one commandment to be joyous because we're harvesting the grain. It's grown, it's ripened, and we harvest it, and it's bound in sheaves in the field and so on. So that's a reason to celebrate. But the big celebration is Sukkot. When successfully we've gathered it all in, the storehouses are full, and not only of grain, I mentioned, but even of fruit. So that's the very simple, basic, elementary level reason for the levels of joy in these 3 holidays, 3 chagim, these 3 festive holidays. Again, Pesach, no commandment to be joyous. Shavuos, Torah commands it once, and Sukkot in 3 separate places. The question that, of course, it begs itself is, I don't know about you, but I'm not a farmer. Looking at who's here, I don't think any of you are. You might grow a vegetable here or there in your garden, but that's about the extent of it. So what's the relevance? The Torah is eternal. And even in Israel, to say that the holidays, the joy commanded in the Torah is connected to the agriculture, to the stages in agriculture that only applied when the whole country was primarily or exclusively an agricultural economy. But as time progressed, and certainly today, it's not. So what's the relevance? So obviously, in the light of Chassidus, everything is explained to having a body and a soul. And there's a deeper, eternal, spiritual meaning to what we just described. Planting, the harvest, and the ingathering. So what's the spiritual significance? I will now explain. Bezrat Hashem. Yeah, you can all hear me because I'm not even hearing my own voice, really. Yes? Okay, good. Thank God. What's Pesach? Pesach is the birth of our people. It's the beginning, the very beginning of our people and our relationship with God. It's our birth. Now, just examining the story of Pesach, our relationship with God then was a matter of faith, pure faith. There was no understanding, there were no commandments, there was no learning, there was no Torah. Well, in parentheses, there was for the Levites, but they are the exception. But for everybody, it was a matter of faith. And quite literally, the story of Passover is a huge leap of faith. The Jewish people are told to leave Egypt. Now, at this point, the slavery is long over. The Egyptians are their best friends. Life is good. And they're told to go out into a desert. And they rushed out without provisions. They had no provisions. All they had was the leftover, the dough that they were preparing, which didn't have time to rise even. That's all they had. And they're going out to a desert And then they're told they're going to receive commandments and obligations and restrictions. Not very appealing. In fact, most people did not leave. But those that did, it was faith just as bad. How are we going to survive this? How are we going to the desert? The wilderness, snakes and scorpions and scorching sun. And the elderly and young and toddlers and newborns. Huge jump, a huge leap of faith. So because it's faith by definition means you're surrendering. I don't understand this is going to happen. I suspend my critique, my intelligence, my questions. It's faith. So that's not a matter of celebration. Faith isn't something you celebrate by definition. Celebration means something, simcha means you're celebrating something you can feel and touch, internalize. It's got to be internalized. Experienced. Faith you surrender to. Hence, the Torah doesn't command joy, because the foundation of our relationship transcends my pleasure or enjoyment. That's what joy is. I'm enjoying this. The foundation is surrender, faith. That's the foundation of our relationship with God. And as we always explain, it's the same, it's true of a marriage, of a godly marriage, is you have to believe that this person is your intended. If you don't have that faith, nothing will follow. You're not enjoying anything necessarily, and it's not about that. It's about believing you're meant to be. Not about gain, not about experience. That will come. That's stage 2. Once the faith is there, that's Pesach. Then comes Shavuos. So Shavuos, we're starting to get to know God. God gives us commandments, Torah, wisdom. And we know that it's so rich and there's so much to learn and experience. And all these commandments means that all of our life and every aspect is going to be made meaningful and purposeful and sacred. Simple acts like eating and sleeping and guided by Torah become eternal, divine connections to God. That's cause for celebration. So Shavuos, we're told, and how does that reflect it? So Pesach, you just plant the seed. Nothing to celebrate. That represents faith. On a simple level, you plant the seed and you hope it's going to grow. That's it. You hope it's going to grow. But on Shavuos already, physically, we're harvesting. Spiritually, that means there's something tangible now in our relationship that we can relate to and understand and see the beauty of and how satisfying it is. Nourishing. We get this deep sense that Torah, once we received it at Sinai, it's a spiritually and physically nourishing divine gift. Pesach, there's nothing to be nourished by. It's a seed. We weren't given the Torah yet. We just went out into the desert believing in God, in our destiny, on a faith level. We had no words, we had no explanation, we had nothing. So therefore the Torah says no simcha. There's no simchat faith. It transcends simcha. But then we bring down the faith. It's now translated, as it were. When it comes to Shavuos, so again, Shavuos, we're given the Torah. God's communicating. We're communicating back. We're listening. We're hearing. This is so rich. This is so beautiful. So we're joyous. But we just got it. So we really haven't sampled it. 6 months later, this is Sukkot. Now we're taking it all in. We have the grain on Shavuos, but we're not really consumed it yet. We can just see it. And it's still, we can see and sense and understand how it nourishes us. But then comes Sukkot, and we bring it all in, and not just the grain, but the fruits, the exotic, delicious fruits, and they're in our home on our table. Now we're into Yiddishkeit in a very experiential way into our Judaism. We're really nourished and have 6 months of experience how beautiful and wonderful it is now. The joy is absolute. That's why when it comes to Sukkot, 3 times. To give a simple example, it's like simple, a crude example, simple example. You buy a lottery ticket. You're not celebrating. You hope you're going to win. Then you're told that you won. And that's cause for celebration. But you're not using the money yet. You haven't bought anything. You haven't renovated your house. You haven't gone on vacation. But you're celebrating. But then the third stage is you got the monies and you already have it and you're spending it and you see what it's, you're giving a lot of charity, doing good things with it. Now you're really the celebration. That's the simcha. Because you're really experiencing your great win. That's the three stages, right? You buy the ticket, faith. You're told you won, joy, but you're actually not benefiting yet. That's the harvest, where you're harvesting the grain, but standing in the field still. You haven't brought it home yet, but it's there. You can see the wealth. And what's Sukkot? You brought it home. It's on your table, and you're savoring it, the grain and the delectable, delicious fruits. So that's where the joy is complete. Hence, on Sukkot, we are told, big joy is 3 times. That's a relationship with God. Again, it's like a marriage. Under the chuppah, bottom line, faith. Why, to make it even broader, like why get married? Why get married? It's not a good idea. It's a godly idea. You got to believe in it. You got to believe in it, that it's a godly thing. Starts with faith. You haven't experienced, you've enjoyed nothing. You just believe in it. Then you marry. So under the chuppah, the joy starts now. Here she is. Here he is. But then that's Shavuos. And what's Sukkot? Sukkot is you're living together, enjoying each other, and experiencing the richness, the beauty, the texture. And that's the same thing with God. Faith, receive the Torah, and now internalize it. Stage 3, experience it. Okay, so that explains in the deeper level why no commandment of joy on Pesach, 1 commandment on Shavuos, giving of the Torah, and 3 times on Sukkot. Now, on the deeper level, I'm going to add something. Are you ready for a deeper level? Yeah. Yeah, okay, so let's go deeper. But first, another gulp of coffee. Have a few gulps. Okay. So here's the thing, friends. It's getting late, but I'll try to make it brief. You know that, things didn't go so smoothly. The transition, look at the calendar, from Shavuos, the giving of the Torah, to Sukkot, the ingathering, and so on. Then in between, a very rocky period. 10 Commandments, betrayal, breaking the 10 Commandments, fast days, the house in ruins. So Shavuos is the chuppah. Yeah, true. We're married. It didn't go smoothly. It would appear, in fact, that it was destroyed. The marriage was destroyed, house is destroyed, betrayal, idolatry, all over. And irreparable. We would have thought that. But it came Yom Kippur. Before that, Rosh Hashanah and Elul, and the period of mending and connecting ever deeper than ever before. In a word, the power of Teshuvah connects us to God or to each other much deeper than initially, when we never said that things were rosy and we were in love with love. It's only through those tensions and through those hurts, if we go deeper and selfless, that we connect on a much deeper level than when everything is fine and good and we remain always on our best behavior. That's the pattern, the paradox of life. Nothing deep no deep connection is ever forged unless there's been some tension and some moment where all is lost, this can't go, this can't work, and then you make it work, then it's so much deeper. That's in every aspect of life. That's how God made the world, because that's the whole purpose. The soul comes down to the world, which is a descent, to reach the deepest connection to God. Paradox is right there. Not in heaven where all is good, and rosy and a bowl of strawberries and cream, that's heaven. This world is, I want to tell you, yet this world, the real connections happen with each other and with God. So we were describing Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. Now I'm telling you, yeah, but there's a huge story in between Shavuos and Sukkot. And that is the hurt, the betrayal, and then the reconnecting, Yom Kippur, cleansing, connecting at this deep level. And that's a deeper reason why the joy of Sukkot is so great. Three times means like it's boundless. And that also explains why in Sukkot it's not just we bring in the grain, but all the fruits, exotic, delectable fruits, really the exotic, deep, nuanced. Many fruits. That's why we eat new fruits on Rosh Hashanah. It's part of all this. Something that's novel and new, and a taste we never tasted before. It's got to be novel, new. Because when we do teshuvah, when we return to God after being separated and alienated and having ignored Him deliberately or not deliberately, when we return with the depth of our heart, that's when we begin to savor the depth, the nuance, the true delight in our oneness with Him. That's where the fruits are gathered in. That's Sukkot. That's the big joy of Sukkot. In a word, teshuvah. And teshuvah is a textured relationship with so much richness to it, not simply the staple grain, which is necessary. Bread, the staff of life, but this goes beyond the basics. We're not just coexisting. We're connecting in a very deep, subtle, and delightful in the deepest way. That's Sukkot. That's why the joy is boundless and it culminates with the Simchat Torah. That's why 3 times in Sukkot. The joy of the Baal Tshuva, the one who sinned and returned, is immeasurably greater than the one who never sinned. Simple example. If water is always available, whenever you're thirsty, you drink water. No big deal. But you come from a desert and then you drink water. That's a whole different experience on every level. Because you're coming from a desert, that's why, where there's no water. So the sin is a spiritual desert, but we come back, or better still, in the desert, we dig deep in ourselves, and we find the life-giving waters in the desert. That's a whole different joy. That's Sukkot. Okay? So different metaphors, examples in life for the 3 stages. Again, faith, then the connection, and now the tensions in that, the struggle with that connection, and finally, the depth of it that comes out in the end. That's the stages in life with God and in all relationships. And that's mapped out in these holidays. And where are we now? The 3rd, 4th level. 4th because it comes after the break. Teshuvah, Yom Kippur, Simchat Torah. Okay, my dear friends, thanks for joining.